You're listening to Founders on Air with Steve Orenstein and Mike Rosenbaum.
This podcast is sponsored by Zoom2You, Australia's on-demand courier marketplace. Get your parcels delivered within hours rather than days.
Today we have with us Adam McCurdie, co-founder of Humanitix. Humanitix gives events impact using booking fees to close the education gap. Hey Adam, thanks for joining us today.
How you doing, Michael? Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to speak to you again. And congrats on what you're building with Humanitix. It's a fantastic Aussie success story, making a real impact.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
So can you tell us, what do you do when you're not working at Humanitix?
Not much.
It's a full-time job.
It's pretty, I guess like any startup in the first few years, it's pretty all-consuming. When I get some time off it, I usually go for bushwalks, mainly around, the Butterwang National Park is really nice, heading to the beach, those kinds of things. Yeah, and a bit of reading.
Beautiful. So some things to clear your head.
Yeah, and get out of internet connection, which is a nice break.
Very good. So tell us, what is Humanitix for those who haven't come across you yet, and what's it all about? How did you guys get started, and what's your big vision?
Yeah, sure. Well, Humanitix is the world's first not-for-profit events ticketing platform, and we donate 100% of profits from booking fees to funding education programs that seek to close the global education gap. And it's been an incredibly exciting journey. The idea was really born out of recognizing that the events ticketing industry generate billions and billions of dollars in booking fees that everybody just hates paying. So that's that, $5, $10, maybe $20 additional fee that you see at the end of the transaction when you're buying tickets to a festival or a show, and everyone hates them. And we thought, what if we could redistribute all the profits of this industry into funding something like education and working to close the education gap?
Amazing. How long have you guys been going for?
Now 4.5 years.
Fantastic.
And what sort of scale are you at to now?
Yeah, sure. So we started in Australia and have since launched in New Zealand. Actually, at the start of January 2018, we launched in New Zealand. So we now operate across Australia and New Zealand. And we are at the stage now where, there's thousands of events all across now Australia and New Zealand that have switched to us. They're mainly festivals, gala dinners, conferences, awards nights, small networking events. It's essentially any event, whether it's 10 people at a yoga class to, tens of thousands of people at a, marathon or a festival. And the platform works, where you log on to, go to humanitix.com, create an account, create your event, and use the platform to sell and manage your ticket sales. And the organizers get to choose which of our education projects they would like to support. And then we report to that to them in real time, exactly what the donation is, so that it's really transparent.
Yeah, awesome.
And impactful. So,
awesome.
We're right now at a run rate of donating $500,000 a year to our education programs. And we're consistently doubling roughly every 4 months. So we're really excited to hit that $1 million a year contributions to education programs, which will be a really exciting milestone. So hopefully that happens around April.
Awesome. And can you share with us in terms of sort of, I guess, the money that's been raised and sort of how that's been distributed to and the impact that's giving?
Yeah, sure. So we have 3 education programs that we focus our efforts on. 2 of them are domestic Australian education programs and 1 is offshore. So the offshore one is done through partnership with a charity called Room to Read, and we specifically focus on their girls' education program. And that is funding literacy programs and life skills for the most disadvantaged girls in low-income countries, predominantly across Southeast Asia. And the research on that is phenomenal, and just the outcomes you can get specifically from funding girls' education in low-income countries is phenomenal. They're also the ones that are more pressured to drop out when it comes to secondary school due to family pressure or having a baby at a very young age. So it's awesome. And it also creates multi-generational impact, because the mother of the family is then able to better appreciate the benefits of education that she can then instill in her children, etc. So actually, the Atlassian Foundation were the one that put us onto that program, and we support that, and it's been fantastic. The second one is Indigenous scholarships. That's for disadvantaged Indigenous students here in Australia. And we fund full scholarship and board for Indigenous students from incredibly disadvantaged backgrounds to have access to education. And that's at the high school level. And the third, we team up with OzHarvest, and that is for meals provided to disadvantaged Aussie kids around the country who are coming to school not having eaten breakfast or not having access to lunch. And coupled with that is also their nutrition program that they roll out across schools to teach healthy nutrition habits to Aussie school kids.
Yeah, awesome. And how did you come up with the idea, and sort of like how did this sort of first evolve?
Yeah, sure. So I was a consultant in the tech world. I'm an engineer by qualification. And my co-founder, was my best friend and still is my best friend, thankfully, he was a hedge fund manager here in Sydney. He studied finance, went down that route. And essentially the two of us were going about our careers, doing relatively well, but ultimately wanted to look to do something of our own and something that, resonated with us more. And we always particularly wanted to go about making an impact on closing the education gap. That's something that really kind of stood out to us as being a significant issue in the world, that it would be awesome if we could somehow work out a way to make a dent on the gap. And so we thought, different to, perhaps, we could quit our jobs and we could go start a charity, and we could move to Laos and, set up a school and, do a lot of good work there, which a lot of amazing people do, and it can produce amazing impacts. But we thought, why don't we try a different route? Why don't we better use the skills that we've acquired and abilities that we have to maybe try and do something that's even more scalable and can produce even more good? And that's when we thought, well, why don't we just go about disrupting a multi-billion-dollar industry and mine all of its profits to funding education programs instead, and set up the first kind of charity to do so. So Humanitix is a registered charity with no shareholders. And that's one of the really unique things about Humanitix. And so we went about doing it. But it was interesting. In the early days, we didn't have any funding, because when you create a charity, there's not too many investors that are lining up to give you money, because you can't extract a return from a charity, nor can you attract, debt or anything, because, well, no one's going to give debt to a website that's just an idea. So we just started working on it in our spare time. But then when it got to the stage when we realized we were actually onto a reasonable idea, we recognized that, doing it in our spare time simply wasn't going to cut it anymore. And so we made the decision that we need to go full time, and that at least one of us needs to focus on this full time to actually give it a chance of succeeding. So we decided that I would leave my job and give up my salary to focus full time on Humanitix, and that Josh would stay at his job, and that would therefore allow us to essentially share his salary to support us both and fund the seed capital required to get the idea going. And so we did that on a handshake for 16 months. Wow. Until finally we had really proven the concept on a very basic MVP type product. And that's when Josh then left his job after us doing that for 16 months to join me full time. And at that stage, we then just started volunteering on the project because we still hadn't raised any money. And it was only perhaps maybe 3 or 4 months after that the first few philanthropists recognized and appreciated what we were doing and decided to donate the first bit of capital to get us on essentially salaries that didn't stopped us from going backwards financially. I mean, at that stage, we both humbly moved back home with our parents. We were fortunate that we could do that. Not everyone can do that. But then that seed capital allowed us to then hire our first CTO, who's still with us today, so our CTO, and then slowly start to build a team and generate more revenue, more donations, more stability, more staff, and then continue to grow from there.
Excellent. And so you've raised some money from the likes of Atlassian and Google. How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, sure. So I think it was probably about a year-ish after we'd raised that first bit of money, and that was just from high net worth individuals that took a shining to what we were doing and appreciated it. But then we went to pitch at an Atlassian charity event. They host events where they invite charities to come and pitch and share what they're doing. And it's part of their Pledge 1% movement, where they give employees, I think, 5 days a year to volunteer on projects and these types of things. So we simply participated in that. And that then turned into discussions with their foundation, who found what we were doing really interesting. And then that led to Atlassian coming in with a significant amount of money of $1.2 million over 3 years to fund us. And then about a year later, we then participated in the Google Impact Challenge. And that's a challenge that essentially roams around the world, and it's looking for what Google thinks are the best ideas that can create social impact using technology. And we won. And that resulted in $1 million of grant funding from Google. Or more, it was google.org, which is their foundation.
Fantastic. So you've also partnered with Canva, I noticed, and I believe that's to help make creating the events and tickets more seamless.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So tell us a bit about that partnership. It sounds amazing, and what impact you're seeing with that partnership.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So we were the first ticketing company in the world now to integrate what's called the Canva button. And what that means is that when you're creating your Humanitix ticketing page, you're dealing with a whole bunch of design elements. The main design element is really the big banner image. That's the big image that sits on the top of the ticketing page and really gives the flavor to the whole page and sells it. So typically what you're only able to do on ticketing sites is click upload a banner image, and then you upload it and you crop it to fit the dimensions of the ticketing page. But with us, there's a button next to it called Design with Canva. And you click on that button and it brings up your Canva account native inside Humanitix. And then you're able to play around with their templates, design tools, editing tools, the whole suite of Canva. And then click publish, and it drops that image that you've just created inside Canva back into your Humanitix event, and then you just keep going with creating your event. And so anywhere inside Humanitix where you've got a design element, whether it's the images on tickets, redesigning your tickets, the background images inside the description, all throughout the whole kind of design and creation process of your event in Humanitix, you're able to use that Canva button to bring up the power of Canva to better do that.
Brilliant. I love it. So corporate responsibility has become a big focus for, I guess, all businesses, whether startups or large companies today. What advice would you give to founders or managers looking to, for their companies to give back to the community via their business, and how can they get started?
It kind of depends at what stage they're in. Are you talking more about new companies, startups that are starting to,
Yeah, I guess both ends of the spectrum.
Or more big companies?
Both ends, I suppose, from your experience. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, the first thing that every startup and even scale-up can be doing now is joining the Pledge 1% movement. And that is a movement that Atlassian actually has been right at the forefront of. And that is where companies pledge 1% of their equity, 1% of their employee time, and essentially 1% of their product, giving their product away for free to charities and not-for-profits. And what it means is it doesn't mean that you have to donate anything now, because often startups and scale-ups are not in a position where you can donate, 1% of equity and time, etc. But what it means is that you pledge that as you continue to grow, when you reach a stage that you're in a position to do so, that you will then start doing so. And it's amazing what just simply setting that intention does, and signing up to a movement like Pledge 1% can do to, setting that intention that when you're in that position that you'll do that. So, lots of Australian companies have done that successfully and got to a position where they're able to pledge 1%, and then it makes a massive difference. For more established, big companies like, whether it be a big bank or just a big company, most of them, are doing a much better job, as I'm seeing, of engaging more seriously with CSR and looking at their grant programs. And I think that's a really exciting trend, and the more the better. I'd say I'm probably biased because I'd say that the best advice I can give them is to be thinking innovatively with their philanthropic giving as much as they want to be innovative with their companies. So obviously, Humanitix is a very unorthodox charity. It's very powerful. We self-fund through our ticketing platform. and produce a whole lot of good for education. But we're not the regular charity. And so naturally people didn't quite know how to look at us in the early days. It's like, hang on a minute, you're a charity, you're a ticketing platform. I don't quite understand. But for example, the Atlassian Foundation looked at us and said, you're completely out of the box. You're completely not what we had in mind. But looking at you and understanding what you do and how you work, this makes all the sense in the world for us to fund you, because we as well want to make a dent on the education gap. And so that was really impressive from the likes of the Atlassian Foundation. But I think the more big corporate foundations follow that kind of more innovative, open-minded approach to their giving, I think the better.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, your competitors in your space that are running sort of, I guess, for-profit businesses, they must be really worried about what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there, but yeah, I mean, we're just offering a really compelling offer. I mean, we're saving organizers money on fees, so the fees are lower than what they're otherwise paying. Our product now, the actual platform, has reached a stage now where we've just got a bunch of features that nobody else in the industry has, which is really, really exciting. And so organizers are using us because they prefer our feature set and they find that they can do more for their events on our platforms than others. And then on top of that, we donate 100% of our profits of fees to funding education programs, and then give the organizer of the event the credit for it, so they're able to go off and use it as a marketing asset for their brand. And that's a really compelling value proposition. Yeah, so
awesome.
It's cool. But I think the other unique thing is that we intentionally set up as a not-for-profit, because we knew that as we continue to grow, shareholders naturally want their return.
Yeah.
And we knew that an idea like this would always be at odds with shareholders wanting to extract a return. So it was for that reason that we intentionally set this up as a registered charity and not for profit, so that there would be no shareholders. That was a very tough decision, because it obviously took a hell of a lot of money off the table for me and Josh. But
absolutely.
If this idea can really scale to where we think it can get to, I think it's going to be the coolest, social enterprise out there, achieving scale in a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's amazing to me.
Unheard of.
That's what drives me. Yeah, exactly.
This podcast is sponsored by Parkhound, Australia's parking marketplace, to find a convenient parking space near your home or office.
Awesome. And so you've now built a team around you. How big's that team?
Yeah, roughly 20 now.
Excellent. And so what have you done in terms of building the culture of that of your team, and how do you see that sort of growing in the future?
Well, it was interesting. The team first started. We started basing my Humanitix originally out of my parents' garage, and that was a really nice thing to do in terms of company culture, because for example, my grandpa lives with my parents, and so the staff. Even when we got to a stage of having 8 or 10 people, we're still in my parents' garage. And, staff would come over, they'd meet my parents, who are lovely people. They'd meet my grandpa, who was also an engineer, and chat with him. And, it's relatively easy, actually, to build a nice culture where people are, value and respect each other and are good people in that environment. But plus, we've got pretty lucky where we've attracted great people too, because I think, just based on who we are and our concept and what our mission and what we're aiming to achieve is, you naturally attract good people. So to be honest, I think we've gotten pretty lucky, damn lucky so far. But we've worked hard. We're weekly. We catch up with people on a regular basis, see where they're at, and I think everyone brings their authentic self to the office and to Humanitix, which is really nice. And it's certainly less tiring. Nobody's putting on a mask or trying to, be the work mode and then go home and then transform into someone else. We all work really hard and we're achieving great things. But to just come to work as yourself, I think is really refreshing for many people.
Yeah, cool. And I guess knowing sort of what they're building is actually going towards something that's going to help a whole bunch of people across the world is pretty special.
Yeah, I can tell you it's been motivating in the most incredible ways. Like, for example, one of our developers will work really hard on a new feature that we then launch, and that feature then ends up, winning us a handful of events that are doing big stuff. And then 6 months later, we're able to add up see their ticket sales, see the fees that resulted from their ticket sales, and see the donation to our education programs that came from that, see the impact of that, and then we're able to go back to that developer and say, hey, that feature that you launched 6 months ago, well, it's right now created this many Indigenous scholarships, and this many girls are now receiving literacy programs and life skills, over the next 3 years. It's mind-blowing that you can make those connections.
Yeah, cool. And so how have you gone about sort of attracting customers?
Yeah, sure. Word of mouth has actually been our strongest asset. We started just literally hitting the pavement and just selling directly, a direct sales model, just talking with event organizers, networking with organizers, and getting them to switch. And a whole bunch started switching, and then they loved the platform. They loved obviously the social impact. They loved the interaction with us. We just treat our event organizers like gold, like family. And then event organizers are a tight community, so you get a handful that really like the product, and then they start talking, and they jump on chat forums, and it's been really amazing to see that grow and grow and grow. Where we jump on, we can see even on Facebook forums, people are asking, does anyone know can recommend a ticketing platform? And straight away people are saying, you got to use Humanitix. It's a no-brainer. And that kind of no-brainer product that we're offering right now is just spreading like wildfire, which is amazing and really exciting.
Do you have a marketing team?
We don't.
Amazing. One of the only startups without a marketing team. Fantastic. Give me that business.
No, we haven't actually. Yeah, we haven't spent any money on marketing. That's,
wow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you shared with us earlier that, you did some very non-traditional things to get started. Your business partner stayed at work, and you split the income, which I think is very innovative on its own. I think it's a great idea for other founders as well to think about. But I guess what have been some of the hairy moments in the business? I'm sure there were moments where, we weren't sure if this thing was really going to take off, and do we continue? So how did you build your resilience, and tell us about some of those hairy moments?
Yeah, I'd say probably the hairiest moments were right when Josh left his job to join me full time, and we were now both just completely essentially exposed financially, volunteering, and we needed to raise the capital to really survive and get going. And we struggled because, like I was saying, you go up to a philanthropist or a foundation and you say, hey, I've got this education charity, growing and doing really cool things. You want to hear about it? They say, sure. And then you tell them that you're a ticketing platform, and they say, what? I'm not going to donate to your ticketing platform. This is just too weird. I just don't understand this. And so we really struggled at the beginning to get much support. And it was so much so that we had for-profit investors telling us that, guys, what you're on to here is really great. Like, why not go for profit, and let's do this. But we thought, no, I think we can really pull this off as a not-for-profit, pull it off as a charity, and raise the money philanthropically, and keep it as a much more purer and simpler model. And then, I remember just waking up in the morning and it's tough. We just get into a war room and just say, all right, let's hit this. Let's see who we can talk to, and just hitting the street and meeting anyone and everyone that we can meet to try and raise this money. And yeah, we eventually did over the next few months, but that was really, really difficult.
And that was
it's just so uncertainty.
About 2 years in, would you say?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah. A year and a half in. But it was really at that point of like, all right, is this going to work, or are we kind of folding? Because I think for the first few, even year of a startup, you can run on, just an exciting idea that's embryonic and exciting and cool, and okay, maybe or maybe not, it won't work. But when you get to that kind of 18-month mark, you're really kind of having to look at yourself pretty honestly and ask yourself, well, are we doing this or not? And is this going to work or not? Do we want to continue to invest everything and continue to make massive financial sacrifices to get this thing going? So that was a real kind of moment where it really could have gone either way. But thankfully, we attracted the philanthropists and then grew significantly from there.
Excellent. And do you have to go about sort of raising more capital sort of fairly regularly, or is it that you're able to sort of manage with the capital you've got for a long period?
No. So the whole power and strength of the Humanitix model is that Humanitix becomes completely self-funding and sustainable, which for the charity sector is completely unique, where you have a charity that doesn't have to have its hand out every year asking the public for donations. So in Australia, we've achieved that. We've succeeded in proving that thesis, that we can get Humanitix to being completely self-funding and not having to raise capital. And that is the state of the Australian Humanitix right now, which is awesome. So
yeah, it's really good, isn't it?
We're not raising any money, and we won't be. And that's the power of Humanitix, that a philanthropist who's given us, let's say $100,000, we're now levering up that $100,000 into millions of dollars over the next few years into funding education programs. So we've levered up their philanthropic donation, which is completely unique.
Yeah, awesome.
Looking back, was there something that you guys built in your product that's become a critical success factor in your business? Difficult
one. Honestly, as cliche as it sounds, I think it's just caring about the customer. I mean, when you start having your first few event organizers, you care about them so much. I think like anyone, you're just so grateful that somebody's using the product or the service that you've made. And I think we've just done a really, really good job of scaling that, where to this day, customers are just overwhelmed by, the support they get, the care that they get, the love that they feel when they start using our product. And I think we've just managed to scale that really nicely. And the staff that we've attracted, I think, have just completely jumped on board that the whole idea of just making our customers, truly feel like they're part of something. And I think that's just scaled really, really nicely, and something that we started from the beginning.
Yeah, cool. And talking of support, do you running your support team in Australia or outside of Australia?
All in Australia. All of our staff are based here in Australia. We have one now, soon to be 2 staff based in New Zealand for the New Zealand entity, but for Humanitix Australia, it's all based here in Australia.
Yeah, excellent. And so throughout the journey, what's been the best piece of advice that you've been given? Yeah,
good question.
Or maybe there's been lots of different advices you've had. But
yeah, we've received an absolute fortune, which has been almost overwhelming. I mean, we've been so lucky to get mentoring from the likes of David Gonski, who we've been meeting with every 6 to 12 months, giving us advice. It's just been amazing. I think that we got this advice from many different people right at the beginning, which was when we were starting with our MVP and starting to sell tickets, and naturally we started to kind of think of all these things that we wanted to do, and what the company, what the charity wanted to be, and our vision, and just kind of that good advice just to bring us back to the essentially the present moment, to say like, okay, that's great that we've got this fantastic vision, but what do we do next? How do we get from navigate very well just through the next 3 to 6 months? And what's that going to be? Happy customers. Okay, let's just go back to happy customers and growing our happy customer base, because that's the lifeblood of Humanitix. And just having that ability to go from having this really exciting, philanthropic mission to saying, how do I help this event organizer who's running this yoga festival, absolutely stoked that they're using our platform, to transition from one world to the other, from like a global to a local level. I think we got that from a whole bunch of different businessmen and women who were excited by what we were doing. And it can be difficult, because you get caught up in wanting to keep thinking about the big picture of what this could be. And, you can risk neglecting what's important now and in the next 3 months.
Yeah, I think that makes sense with so many businesses. Happy customers, they pay the bills at the end of the day. That's right. And they're the people that talk about you and get you word of mouth and Absolutely. Make your life easier. And for our industry, it's recurring business. So, the vast majority of organizers are running events every single year, the same event or growing number of events. So
If you keep them happy this year, they come back next year. So that's really important to us.
Makes sense. And so looking ahead, sort of what do you sort of see over the next sort of 5 years in terms of what you're building?
Yeah, we'll be expanding into other regions. We'll be going into the US, which we're really excited by. And slowly, bit by bit, we're seeking to be the largest self-service events ticketing platform globally that's able to, the more we grow and the more fees that we can essentially get our hands on in events, the more we're able to redistribute into closing the education gap. So it's really just a matter of scale and growth, because it's directly tied to our philanthropic impact and what we're able to do for education.
Adam, one last question. Thanks very much. You've been very generous with your time and sharing so much about your journey, which has been fascinating to hear about. So I read today that, all of us Aussies, I think we all want to somehow contribute and give back in terms of these devastating fires that are all around us. And I read somewhere that there's a way using Humanitix that we can do this as well. So could you just share with us how people can get involved?
Yeah, sure. So we noticed that a lot of events have been popping up to support the bushfire relief and aid for bushfires, for the people that have been affected by bushfires. And we thought, okay, well, for all of those events, let's have Humanitix, instead of donating the profits from booking fees to one of our education programs, for those events, Humanitix will donate 100% of profits from booking fees to the Red Cross Disaster and Relief Fund. And so if somebody's running an event where the proceeds of the event are going to bushfire relief, they can put it on Humanitix, just simply reach out to us, and we will apply the Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund to their event. And then essentially we can amplify the impact that event is having on bushfire relief, which is just awesome. It's us doing our bit, and we think we can. We'll see what the numbers end up being at the end of the day, but we're excited to see what impact we can make there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Founders of Air, Adam. It's been great having you here, and I'm sure that there's lots of people are going to find a lot of interesting information you've been able to provide. So, and thanks for being so open.
My pleasure, Michael.
And that's all for now for Founders on Air. We'll be back in the next week with another exciting episode. So thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Founders on Air with Steve Orenstein and Mike Rosenbaum, a podcast designed for founders by founders to help you scale your business. For show notes and to ask questions for future episodes, go to foundersonair.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.